Hi guys, Arthur here from Homeowner DIY. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to mount a shower and tub diverter. Now these diverters are Moen's, just like the one video I have on the channel already. So I'm going to skip the prefab portion because it's exactly the same. But in this video I will show you how to center the diverter, how to gauge the depth for the diverter, and then anything else that you need to know to make sure your diverter is at the proper depth and it's nice and straight. So when you do your finish, everything looks good. So what I'll do now is material and tools, and then we'll get started. Alright, this is our material and tools list. So in general, this is the stuff I'm going to use. 1.5 inch screws, 2-inch screws depending on the manufacturer. For backing, I'll use 3-inch screws. These are all deck screws. You don't need deck screws, but because I'm not going to go out and buy multiple types, I just use deck screws universally. For backing, generally it'll be a 2x4. Sometimes you may need to go to a 2x6 for the cartridge if the cartridge is bigger, depending on the manufacturer. For tools, skill saw. I have hand tools, hammer, nail bar, measuring tape, level. Slot screwdriver if you have integrals, it depends. Cordless kit, so I've got my drill in case I need to drill holes and then move water pipe or drill through a stud. And I have my impact. In general, this is the stuff I need for mounting diverters. So what we'll do now is start with the shower. Alright guys, the first step for figuring out where we're going to put our diverter is we need to know what the center of the drain is from the edge of the shower base. So it's about 15, 7/8, 16 inches. Alright, so we're going to measure off our wall. That looks to be about 15 and 7/8 right there. Check one more time. Yeah. Okay, so this is the center of the drain, so this is going to be the center of where our valve is going to be, our diverter. Alright guys, so the homeowner wants the handle to be about there. So I've already made up the shower diverter. So that's what it's going to look like. Alright guys, now we'll talk about depth. So this is our thick wall. So in the picture you can see the plastic cover where it is flush, the end of the cover to the wall. So guys, what that means is this right here, this edge needs to be pretty close to being flush with the finished wall. So a typical wall is drywall, thin set, and then tile, which I would ballpark about 1 inch. Alright, so guys, an easy way to go about this is the tape here is about 1 inch wide. So if you were to hold the tape on the very front like this, that's going to give you an idea of where your plastic cover is going to be. So we put the tape across, and you can see about where the plastic cover should be. So with the plastic cover on, what you can now do is measure, and in this case here, it looks about 3 1/8. Alright guys, so we're going to measure for our backing. Guys, a key thing that you need to keep in mind here is if you measure off the front and then your studs are like this, it's going to screw up your measurement. So try to measure in the back where you're actually going to mount your backing. And that's 11 1/8. Okay, so this is our edge that we're going to measure off of. Now, we need to go out by 1 inch. So if the depth from the cover From there to there is 3 1/8. So this needs to be an inch farther out from here. So that's 3 1/8. What we'll do is we're going to measure back 2 1/8, which is there. With 2 1/8, it looks like a 2x4 is going to fit tight to here, which is perfect. Okay guys, be aware of one thing. Be careful, because this is only drywall. Don't go pulling on this too much if you need to, because you can punch a hole in the drywall. But with that done, it needs to go just 1/8 of an inch back. Just light taps is all you need. Okay, so that's 2 1/8. That is 2 1/8. Alright, so that is where the backing should be, so we'll do our check. And it's within 1/8 of an inch. So as a rule of thumb, if your diverter is slightly farther out, that is better than being too deep. If you're too deep, you either need to get trim extensions, which are longer screws, or you may need to shove wood or something in behind to push the thing out. And this is after the place has been drywall tiled and everything else. I've had it where framers have come by behind me, they furrowed out the wall, but they never said anything, and now I wound up being too deep. So through this tiny little hole, I had to unscrew the or loosen off the cartridge portion and try to slide wood up underneath and screw it back in just to push the thing out a little bit. Alright, with our backing where I want it, what I'm going to do now is put a couple 3-inch screws into the side. So go relatively straight until it starts to bite, and then you can bend it outward. Give it a good shake to make sure it's fine. Okay, so off of our wall on this side here, this was 15 7/8 16. Okay, so this is our line here. That will be the center of the pipe, so it'll look like that with our copper. Alright, so we're going to grab our cartridge. I crimped this on because I think it's going to be too tough. There's not enough space over here for crimping it on after the diverter has been mounted. Okay, so I have a pencil mark here. This is my center off the wall. So I'm going to take my increment level, and right now it says that the copper is plumb, so it's straight. So guys, these are 1.5-inch deck screws. Don't go all the way in yet. So with that in, this side is plumb as well. That is plumb. So I don't need to take a measuring tape, but I will do it anyway. So that all works out well. Alright, so watch right here. We want this just to barely depress into the wood. a shake. And then down here, give it a shake, that's fine. Alright guys, one other thing that we're going to look at is this here. We want it to come out straight. I'm not sure if you can really see that all that well on the camera, but make sure everything is coming out nice and straight so you don't have any leaks and you have a nice clean finish once you're done. Alright guys, so this is our main water. We're going to shut this off. Okay, on the main floor, we're going to drain the system from the top floor. Alright, so with the water shut off, and I drained the main floor at the laundry. So if we turn this on, okay, so that's introducing air into the system. And that should introduce air into the cold side. And if it doesn't, then when we cut this here, that'll bring air into the cold side. Alright, with our lines cut, I'm going to remove the old diverter, and then we're going to crimp on our new lines. Alright, so this is our final product. Everything's been tightened in. It's nice and solid. Guys, make sure for a shower that you talon either the stud on either side, or because there's a piece of backing from the original tub, that's fine too. Otherwise, when adapting from poly B to PEX, the poly B end of the coupling, and yes, they are different from PEX, that'll be on the bottom, and then the gray ring, sorry, the copper ring will go on the poly B side, the black ring will go on the PEX side. But with this all done now, what I'm going to do is go turn on the water, and we'll run a little bit of water through our shower head and see if we have any leaks. Guys, we're back at our main shut off, so we're going to turn the water on. And we'll wait until everything is silent. That means no more water is flowing through it. Okay, now we don't hear any water flowing, so we can turn this all the way on. Guys, if you hear water flowing after a minute or a minute and a half, based on the size of the house, that means something is open or something is leaking. And in this case, I didn't shut off the diverter, so it was leaking out of the shower head. But because I realized very quickly that water was still flowing, I shut it off. But guys, don't just walk away expecting everything is fine. If you hear water flowing and you're only working in one area, it should shut off pretty quickly. Otherwise, something is open in the house or something is leaking. Alright, and when you're all done, make sure that you put on the plastic cover. This is going to be a gauge for the drywall and the tile for them to go around it. Alright, to install a tub diverter, the way I learned to do it is to center it off your overflow. Your drain may not line up with your overflow, but when you look at the overflow and then your spout and then look up the line, it looks a lot better if everything lines up. If you have your diverter here or over here, it'll look terrible. So this is the way I learned to do it. So with our center screw, that's going to be a reference point. I'm going to plumb the level. So 15 5/8. So the center will be 15 5/8. Now this diverter is the same as the shower. The depth is the same. Everything's the same. So for this design, this is going to be flush to finished wall. So this is going to be 1 inch out because drywall is a 1/2 inch, mortar is 1/8, tile is 1/4 to 3/8. So 1 inch is a pretty accurate ballpark. So from the face to the back here, it's 3 inches, which means the backing needs to be inset by 2 inches. Now when it comes to measuring for your backing, so we have the spout, cartridge, and then the shower head at the top. Ignoring the previous backing, what I would do is when I measure all three, I would take the smallest measurement and then I would cut all the backing to that same size. And what would happen is I would just suck the stud in a little bit. Remember, these studs have a crown. They have a slight curve to them. So it's easier to go by the smallest measurement and then cut everything at one time. When I was doing this in construction, I would measure all the units, cut all the backing, and then mount everything as I went along. It wasn't back and forth. So that is the way I did it. And you would have a nice tight fit between your backing and your studs. But what I'll do now is I'll go cut my backing at 10 1/4. Okay, so they're all 10 1/4, so I'm going to go cut my backing at 10 1/4, and then we will come back. Okay, so I've cut my backing. I need to inset this back by 2 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the cartridge first. Once the cartridge has been mounted, then I can go and do the spout and the shower head. But we want the spout and the shower head to come out level, because if it's crooked, you're going to see it on the finish. Okay, so our center for a cartridge is there and there. Our piece of 2x4 is 3.5 inches. So the previous backing is actually going to be in the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Sawzall. I'll cut through the nails on either end and then slide this out. So as usual, make sure that you have earplugs and safety glasses on. The last thing you want is a piece of hot metal in your eye from a nail. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'll cut right through the middle here because they have this notch, so it should be a relatively easy cut. I don't know if there's drywall screws on the back of this. If there is, then I'll have to patch it up later. Alright, so with that piece out, what we'll do is we'll grab our piece of backing. Okay, so I'm just going to eye out the center of my pencil mark. So I'll put a couple screws in on either end. So this one went way through this one. You can see just the very tip of it through, so we'll back the other one off. And then I'll put all the screws in for this piece of backing. Okay, so we'll just grab our level. We'll level the piece of backing. Alright, with your center piece of backing in, our measurement to center is 15 5/8. Alright, so the X here is going to be the center. So we'll take the cover off. And guys, I realized I didn't mention this on the other one. So the two front ones are threaded. The two rear ones that are also bigger are not. The threaded ones are for the trim plate. So we're going to use the back ones. If you put a screw into this, you'll mangle the threads and then the whole thing is garbage. So I'm going to use two 3-inch screws. Alright, so I'll put my level on the copper going to the shower head. Plumb the level so it's vertical. Alright, we'll check one more time. The spout is plumb. Alright, so I'm going to slip my backing in behind the wing back 90 here. The next thing I will do is the spout just because it's closer. I mean, I don't think it matters if you do the spout or the shower head next, but I would always do the cartridge first because that is going to dictate everything else. Alright, I had to loosen these screws off to get my backing in behind, but I got that in. Okay, so for our spout, we want it to come out level, not on an angle. So we'll bring the backing out. So that is plumb right there. Okay, so this piece of backing needs to be 1 3/8 from the front here. So to make it easier, what I'll do is I'll just make a mark. I'm a little bit off, so I need to bring it out more. Alright, so our cartridge is 15 5/8, 15 3/4. Our spout is 15 5/8. Guys, again, that's the center to center. So with a couple 1.5 deck screws, I'm going to screw the spout to the backing. Give that a shake, give that a shake. Everything is nice and solid. Lines up, it looks good. Alright, the spout was 1 3/8 back. Now the spout and the shower head are not the same wing back, so don't just assume it's going to be the same. What I will do is I'll mark what looks like the center, mark what looks like the center. We'll grab our piece of backing, we'll slide it in behind. actually looks good right there. So it looks like the shower head is going to be pretty well tight to the back of the stud. Okay, so this one is from the very front here. This is an 1 3/8 back. So it's a 3/8 different from the spout. This is why you don't assume. Give that a shake, it's solid. Okay, so that says this plumb right there. I made a mark at the very top. And now a couple 1.5" number 8 deck screws once again. So that says this plumb. Now what we'll do is we'll check all of our measurements. Alright, so it's time to connect our water pump. Alright, so we'll cut it at the very top. In case you're wondering why I 90'd it together, because it's short a cap. And then the very last thing I'll do is put a couple talons onto the water lines to hold them in place. Alright, this is our finished product. So our overflow is there, spout is centered, go all the way up, everything is nice and straight. I've clipped the hot and the cold. So now I'm going to go turn on the water once again. Make sure everything is good to go. Once that's all done, we'll do an overview of this job. So this is the shower that I did in the beginning of the video. This is the trim put on. I didn't put it on, but so you guys can see what the finished product looks like. But I have to say the shower looks pretty good. Alright, so that concludes this project. So the most important thing that you need to know is the depth for your diverter. What is going to be on the wall? If you're going to have a acrylic shower stall, that's going to change the depth, or a tub with a surround. That will be different from a typical drywall and tile. So know in advance what you're going to install, and then you can go about it accordingly. Different manufacturers will have different ways to do the depth. In this case, you're going flush to the cover. The time on this project, the time was about a half an hour per diverter, so that's cutting backing and then installing everything. As long as nothing is in the way, it should be pretty standard of a half hour, at least for me, for my experience. The cost for diverters. Now this will be dependent on the manufacturer. Delta, which I typically install, the rough and body and the finish are in separate boxes, but for Moen's these are all in the same box. I would say for a diverter with copper is probably about $200. Now this will be dependent on what you want to install, but $200 is a fairly accurate ballpark for most jobs. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I hope something here is going to help you on your project when you need to go ahead and do that. Guys, till next time, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next project.